Here at Metal Music Meltdown, back with another video. What we have today, guys, is kind of a one-off video I wanted to do. It's going to be my 20 essential metal albums that every metalhead should have in their collection. When I was originally putting together this list, I was going to include some bands that are much newer that I consider essential, and their albums are just incredible, and I believe every metalhead should have it in their collection. But I wanted to go the more traditional route and kind of pick just more iconic albums, and albums are just considered all-time classics in the genre for a reason, and ones that everyone should just naturally have in their collection, in my opinion. So let's jump right in, guys. I went with 20. I originally tried to narrow it down to 10, but after getting to 10, there were so many amazing albums I just couldn't leave off, so I bumped it up to 20. But realistically, I could probably do a list of 100, to be honest, because there's so many iconic albums that really shape the genre and subgenres of metal. So let's jump right in. These aren't in any kind of order. They're just kind of in a list here. So the first one I went with was Pleasure to Kill from Creator. Killer Teutonic thrash album. Kind of a must-have in my opinion. They're probably their most popular album from the band. And just a really good album to have in your collection to get a taste for that Teutonic thrash metal out of Germany. Much different sound than the Bay Area. Much more aggressive, more raw. And just a central one in my opinion. Next one here, we got pretty much my favorite thrash band of all time, Testament, with their album The New Order. Just so many iconic thrash anthems on this album, with songs like Into the Pit, Disciples of the Watch, The Preacher, Day of Reckoning, The New Order, Trial by Fire. Just an incredible thrash album and a must-have in every collection, in my opinion. But again, Testament has a handful of albums that could probably go on this list. But that's kind of always been my favorite and one I think everyone should really have. The next one here we got is Death with their second album, Leprosy. One of the most iconic album covers of all time. And just that early example of the early scene of death metal. You could have easily gone with Scream Bloody Gore because it's kind of where it all began. But I decided to go with Leprosy. I think it's just an iconic album and one of my favorites from their discography. Like I said, killer artwork, slightly more refined sound than their debut, but a little bit more better songwriting, but just an essential death metal album that everyone should have. And the next one here, Rainbow Rising, my personal favorite album of all time, from the Kelly artwork. 6 songs of pure perfection, with songs like Stargazer, the best metal song ever written, in my opinion. One of the best lineups in metal history, and it's a must-have in my opinion. Just so iconic and classic, and it's just incredible. Next, we got a little bit more of a newer album from 2009, Crack the Sky from Mastodon. This is not super modern. It's almost almost 20 years old still, but probably one of the newer ones on my list. But it's already considered an all-time classic. It's just so good. It's just a really good concept, progressive metal album. Really good singing, really good playing. Always revered as one of their best albums in their catalog by most. For most people, I'd say 80% of Mastodon fans consider this their best album. Not me personally. I try not to pick necessarily my favorite albums from the band every time to be biased, but I just wanted to put in the albums that I would consider must-haves and just classics in metal history. My personal favorite from Mastodon's always been Blood Mountain personally, but Crack the Sky is the more essential album, I'd say. With In Flames, I went with Clayman for the next one here. Really good album, still early enough in their catalog to really showcase that kind of really heavy melodic death metal, but just on the cusp of when they're starting to go a little bit more, even more melodic and commercial, but not in a bad way. And I think there's a perfect balance in their catalog of early brutality, In Flames, and newer melodic and heavier on the melodic side, In Flames. It's that perfect sweet spot in the middle, with great songs like Pinball Map, Bullet Ride, Only for the Weak, the title track. Always been one of my favorite In Flames albums and a must-have in my opinion. Next, we got the debut album from Morbid Angel, Altars of Madness. Definitely a really unique sounding album compared to what else was coming out at the time. It definitely doesn't sound like anything else at the time. Just some really banger songs on this one, and just a perfect example of that early death metal sound again, but done in their own way. But a must-have in every heavy metal fans collection, especially if you're into death metal, is an essential. Next, we got Heaven and Hell by Black Sabbath, the first album with Ronnie James Dio on vocals, and this album is a beast. It's always been my favorite Black Sabbath album. It's an essential album. It's when people ask me if someone was to come up to me and say, Jeremy, give me an album that really emphasizes heavy metal to you, this is one of the albums I would instantly pick. It's just stripped down heavy metal, soaring vocals, doomy, sludgy guitar riffs and heavy banging riffs, great good drumming, really cool songs with songs like Neon Nights, Children of the Sea, Heaven and Hell, the title track is a masterpiece. Yeah, and instant album that came to my mind when making this list. Next we got the debut album from Exodus, Bonded by Blood. Just pure raw, Bay Area thrash. The unfortunate thing about this album is that it came out too late. This was released in '84, but technically they recorded it much before that. But if it got released around the same time as like Kill 'Em All and the earlier albums, I think Exodus might have had a different path, to be honest. I think their debut is up there with Kill 'Em All and the other ones from their peers. I just think it was released a little too late, and I think that affected their trajectory in their career path personally. Love Exodus though; it's my second favorite thrash band of all time, and this debut is a no-brainer. Bailoff on vocals is a beast. Crazy good thrash album, a must-have. Next we got Overhead by Motorkill. This is just an iconic Motorhead album. It's their second in their discography. It's got a lot of their staples in their set when they're around, with songs like Overkill, Stay Clean, Capricorn, No Class, Damage Case, Metropolis. It's like a greatest hits album for Motorhead. Always been my favorite album, always been one of my favorite bands. And if you don't have at least a couple Motorhead albums in your collection, you're doing something wrong. I don't have as many as I would like. I eventually want to get them all for 100%. Always been one of my favorite bands. They just have so many albums. It just takes some time to kind of get them all. Next we got another album that I consider an all-time thrash masterpiece, Rust in Peace by Megadeth. I've also never been the biggest Megadeth fan, to be honest. I love some of their early albums, but overall, there's no denying Rust in Peace's masterpiece level. It's just a must-have if you're a thrash metal fan and a heavy metal fan in general, with the crazy, insane guitar work from Mustaine and Marty Friedman, and just a riff fest, really good songs, and Holy Wars has always been my favorite Megadeth song, and it's just a beast of a thrash album and essential. Next we got Opeth, Blackwater Park, my favorite band, my favorite album from my favorite band. I think this is essential just because it can open people's eyes to how metal can be more an experience over just like banging your head and the adrenaline and stuff. Opeth, that's why I love Opeth. They're like good headphones music. It brings you on a journey. They're super brutal and heavy with the growls and the death metal side, but then they go into these really beautiful soft passages. The contrast is amazing, and I think everyone should have Opeth in their discography, in their collection, and Blackwater Park is so essential. Next we got the debut album from Merciful Fate, Melissa. Good representation of the kind of proto black metal album mixed with traditional metal. Just really good stuff. The King's falsetto vocals, killer guitar work on this one as well, and a must-have in every collection in my opinion. Essential. Next we got the debut album from Ozzy, Blizzard of Oz. It's Ozzy. What more can I say? His first album after splitting with Black Sabbath. Just some really good tunes on this one. Of course, Crazy Train is iconic. Suicide Solution, Mr. Crowley. Just so many good songs on this album. And again, just one I automatically thought of when I thought of, a new person making a metal collection, this is definitely one of the first albums they should definitely pick up. And much similar to that, the next one's kind of the same. Holy Diver from Dio. Dio is the god of metal in my opinion. I know, Halford's the metal god, but for me, Ronnie James Dio is he's the metal god, or even Lemmy, but vocally, in my opinion, Dio was the man. And his debut album is just so iconic. So many great songs. Holy Diver, Stand Up and Shout, Gypsy, Don't Talk to Strangers, Rainbow in the Dark, Straight Through the Heart. Top to bottom, it's a perfect album. It's iconic artwork and just a must-have for every metalhead. The next one here, we got, of course, Master Puppets by Metallica, kind of a no-brainer. I was going to put Ride the Lightning because that's my personal favorite, but when thinking of like an essential album in a collection, I think Master Puppets is kind of their opus album, if you will. So many iconic songs: Battery, Master Puppets, The Things That Should Not Be, Welcome Home Sanitarium, Disposable Heroes, just an amazing album. Got Priest, Screaming for Vengeance. You have that Priest in your collection. Honestly, I don't really have too much Priest in my collection. I do have this album, Screaming for Vengeance. It's a masterpiece. Iconic artwork, some really good songs. Halford at his prime and with his vocal range. But you definitely need some Priest in your collection, and this is kind of the one that came to my mind. Either this or British Steel, or maybe, I don't know, there's a couple albums you could get, Stained Class, but I think for the most essential and iconic album from Priest, I automatically thought of Screaming for Vengeance. Next we got another Black Sabbath album, Paranoid. Their second album. Again, just like a greatest hits of early Black Sabbath. War Pigs, Paranoid, Planet Caravan, Iron Man, Electric Funeral, Fairies Wear Boots. Just every song's a banger, and just that early doom metal, sludge metal, heavy metal, they kind of started it all, and everyone has Paranoid. I'm not sure, I've never heard of a metalhead that didn't have this album in their collection. It's essential. And next we got Iron Man, Number of the Beast. Iron Man have so many iconic albums. You might say Killers, you might say The Debut, you could say Power Slave, you could say Peace of Mind. But for me, the money is on Number of the Beast. It's just so iconic. Bruce is fresh in the band and hungry. And it's just, again, top to bottom, it's like the greatest hits. Invaders, Children of the Damned, Prisoner, 22 Acacia Avenue, Number of the Beast, Run to the Hills, Gangland, and Hallowed Be Thy Name. There's no weak tracks. All bangers. My personal favorite album from the band, and I never get sick of it, and every metalhead should have this in their collection. And the last one here, we got, of course, Rain in Blood by Slayer. Just to get more thrash than this, 29 minutes of pure pummeling thrash metal, and when you think of Slayer and you think of thrash metal, this is the album, guys. You could go with Hell Awaits, but come on, it's Rain in Blood, it's iconic, and it's just a must-have. So that's it for my list. There's tons of albums I left off that could be considered essential for sure. I might do another list maybe in the future. But let's put down below albums you would put on your kind of a metals essential list. If you were having somebody who's new to a younger guy or woman into metal, if this was a list of 20 albums you need to start with or that are essential to have in your collection to maybe give them a taste of different types of metal, different time periods. This is kind of the list I came up with. A little heavy on the thrash for me, but I'm just a big thrash metal fan, so that's kind of what I went with a lot. But let me know down below what your picks would be for essential metal albums. And stay tuned for more great content, guys. Keep it metal.